Hey family, welcome to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks Live. I am live today at 5 p.m. And listen, I I'm flying by the seat of my pants today. I was not expecting to do this for real, for real. But I needed to share some information with you because I had an opportunity this morning to go on one of the NPR stations here, KPCC Air Talk. And so while I was there, we were discussing, I was along with a couple of other professionals, some this recent shooting. And so while I am really bothered by this shooting, I decided that I wasn't done talking about it. So I am trying to create for you as we speak right now a, okay, let me see, how do I do this? Trying to create a watch party. Give me a moment. And hey, Michelle, give me a moment as I try to figure this out. Trying to create a watch party on my private page. And I seem to be having some difficulty doing that. So I may have to figure out another way how to share what it is that I'm saying and doing here over there. So let me figure this out, you guys. Come on in, settle down, bear with me while I work out these house cleaning issues. And we're going to talk a little bit about this deputy shooting, Compton, Willowbrook. I'm not sure exactly where it occurred, but LA County deputy sheriffs are involved. And so oh, there we go. I'm going to be having a friend of mine to join me and talk about this shooting because I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about this earlier today, but I'm not done. I was on KPCC Air Talk. I'll share a link with you later on. And let me, I'm wearing a bunch of hats here. Let me bring on my special guest so that he can at least be here in the queue with me as soon as I figure out how to do that. And I think he'll have a very interesting perspective with regards to these particular shootings. And I want to join him in on the conversation. But I'm not seeing exactly how to do that, you guys. Bear with me. Ryan Twyman is the young man, 24 years old, shot and killed by LA County Deputy Sheriffs a couple of days ago. And you guys know the deal. 27 rounds were fired. No, 37 rounds were fired. Okay, let me invite. Talk about this shooting. Hold on. You may hear something in the background that I don't really want you to hear, but as I try to figure this out, I'm trying to invite my special guests. And I have AT&T Uverse, you guys, and ooh wee, it is the worst. AT&T is the devil. This connection is almost like dial-up. It's almost like dial-up. And oof. So as I'm trying to bring my guest on, I'm just going to jibber jabber and ramble for a little bit. So bear with me. But do this as you come on. Share this on your timeline and help me get this out to others, because I think this is an important discussion that we should be having about this particular shooting. And also what I'll share with you as I'm rambling. Also, what I will share with you is a link to a YouTube video by a commander by the name of April Tardy, I believe is her name, on LA County Sheriffs. Whew, James, I can't find you, dude. I cannot find you. I'm inviting James Farr now. So hopefully he will come on in just a little bit and he will be able to join in with me. Nonetheless, there's a LA County Deputy Sheriff Commander, Black female, April Tardy, who has put up a YouTube video. They're calling it a critical incident report. And she talks very specifically about this shooting. There are videos that are shown from not the deputies because they don't have body cams, I'm told. And the video that they showed is from an adjacent building. Hang on. The video that they showed is from an adjacent building, and it's a couple of different angles, and it shows the actual shooting. And this Commander Tardy, April Tardy, gives a play-by-play, if you will, description of what is being seen. And listen, you know, she's a Black woman, but you know what I say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? And she speaks company speak. Listen, do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if, not if, but when this shooting comes back in policy because of, you know, the way Commander Tardy is speaking. She goes to great lengths to talk about how the young man Ryan was using the vehicle as how the young man was using the vehicle as an instrument. And James, if you're watching, and I know that you are, dude, I see nothing on my screen that tells me how to get you on here so you can talk with me as we do this together. Okay, so now I'm I'm MacGyvering this, you guys. I may just have to call and get him on the phone and bring him into the conversation that way. So I'm gonna get you in here, James, one way or another. But what happened? I'm sorry. Hey, James, I'm putting you on speaker now. So we're gonna just have to MacGyver this thing, and hopefully everybody will be able to hear you as you speak to me. So I've got my good friend James Farr, who is with the Conversation Live, a Facebook group here as well, and he is a activist very involved in the community over in Pasadena. And I wanted to get James in on this discussion because he's had an opportunity to participate in some shoot, don't shoot scenarios as a civilian. And he understands, I think, better than some. Hang on. Okay, I'm bringing my mic up because I may need to put it to my phone just to make sure you can hear him better. But he understands, you know, what it is to have to make a decision pretty quickly with regards to when to use deadly force. And so I wanted to bring him into this conversation. But back to the Commander, April Tardy, and what she had to say in her critical incident report. She talks at great length about the positioning of the officers and what they knew about the young man. And listen, we know that it is not uncommon for folks to dirty up a victim, right? The deceased. He's gone. He can't speak for himself. He can't tell us what was in his mind when he started to back his vehicle up that you see on this video. He can't, he can't speak. So they get to interpret and say what he was thinking, which, you know, is problematic for me because, listen, I don't know what the deputies were thinking. I can't tell you what was in their head. I can just only tell you what I see and what I think about it as a patrol sergeant, having spent 20 years in uniform chasing folks like Ryan. And I know, you know, that bad guys, you know, want to get away. That's inherent to what we do. When somebody gets arrested or has been arrested or has a criminal record and they are subject to being arrested again, they want to get away. And so they try to evade capture. And I don't know this to be true, but I think that's what Ryan was trying to do when he put his car in reverse. And it wasn't quickly that he backed up. He kind of slowly started to back up because that was the only direction he could go at the time. He had pulled into a carport in an apartment complex, it looks like. And according to the officers, the spokesperson, this Commander Tardy, they knew who he was. They knew where he was. They had been looking for him for about 2 weeks, according to this very detailed YouTube video that exists. He's a convicted felon. He was on felony probation. I mean, they lay out his criminal history in a way that would make some people say, well, heck, he got what he deserved. He shouldn't have run. He shouldn't have tried to get away. My position is this, and James, I want to hear from you. My position is this. Since they, by their own admission, the deputy sheriffs knew who he was, they knew where he was, they had been looking for him for 2 weeks, and they got word that he's over there, right? So they go over there and they see a white Kia. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. So here we have Ryan in a white Kia, exactly where the officers expected to find him. So my question is this, and you tell me what you think, family. If they knew he was a bad guy, and they say they knew he was a bad guy because they talk about his criminal history and his being on felony probation, if they knew that, then why did they go over there just 2 deputies? Because listen, I work patrol. And what I would have done is I would have gone over there with about 3 or 4 or 17 units since he's a bad guy, right? And since they had taken all of these weapons out of his house during a search warrant a couple of weeks earlier, so you know he's a bad guy. You said he's a bad guy. Why go over there with 2? Why not get on the radio and ask for backup or more, a supervisor, set up some kind of a tactical situation so that you could take this person into custody, because the goal is supposed to be to get him into custody, right? We have courts that will determine whether or not he did this thing that you said he did. And you want the numbers on your side so that in the event he attempts to flee, you've got plenty of resources right there with you. So, you know, I have a problem with the tactics that the officers used. And so, James, I want to know what you think, and I'm going to attempt to put the microphone near my phone so folks can hear you. And James, you can also, since you're here with me live, go on and type into the comments section as well. But tell me what you thought about it, because you saw this video of the commander this morning, just like I did, and you had the opportunity to listen to my response on KPCC Air Talk. So what are your thoughts?
First of all, Cheryl, thank you for having me on today. How you doing today? You know, I'm troubled by what I saw today. I'm deeply, deeply troubled, and simply because tactically, what I saw was I didn't see the reason why the officers had to immediately approach the vehicle. I don't understand why the passenger officer had to open the door, especially considering we didn't know prior to this week what was the backstory for Brother Ryan and why they were actually looking to contact and engage him. But that being known, I'm thinking, why is there just a normal felony stop where they start the process by ordering him out of the vehicle first, guns drawn, and also waiting for backup. I mean, waiting for an airship. What was the urgency at that moment that required not one of the officers, but both of the officers, and then the officer to completely unload his weapon, have enough time to retreat back to the car, grab the AR-15, and then come back and continue shooting? To me, I'm not an expert in the little bit of experience that I've had. To me, they tactically put themselves in a position to where shooting may have been the only option.
Right, right. I mean, you know, listen, you know, I say all the time that great deference is given to police officers and what we say. And listen, you know, if you're a good officer, if you're a good street cop, and you're able to articulate, whether it's verbally or in writing, probable cause, reasonable suspicion, and great deference is given to our version, any good street cop would be able to look at that and justify, as the representative from the Deputies Association tried to do on the radio with me this morning when we were speaking about it, as did Commander April Tardy do when she talked about, you know, all of the things that Ryan had been involved in previously and all of the guns that they had taken out of his home. And she went, in my mind, to great detail to say that he had been arrested for, you know, possession, a felony, on felony probation, and, you know, all the other things that he's been charged with in the past. I promise you, if Ryan had been arrested for, you know, shoplifting, she wouldn't have said, and he's been arrested for petty theft, a misdemeanor. She didn't do that. She made a point of saying that he's been arrested for a lot of different felonies on purpose.
She stated some facts, but, you know, I'll go a little bit deeper. You know, I shared the video with a couple of law enforcement individuals that are retired, and I know I commonly bounce things off of them. And they were like, oh, yeah, I can work that report. No problem. Absolutely. They know exactly, to your point about the articulation. And then to go even deeper and further into that, you know, I've spoken with officers around some of the reporting I've done on the Christopher Balloon case here in Pasadena. And one officer told me, he said, it's kind of like this code with officers. If you lie to it, I'll swear to it. And the highest court in the land is going to uphold what we say. And so I still, for the life of me, I don't understand why they chose to go directly at him when they knew. Earlier, we didn't have the backstory. They tell us, let's wait for all the facts, right? So now we see information, we see video, and we know they were looking. What was the imminent threat?
Right, right. And so, you know, to your point, you know, I say all the time, bad tactics lead to bad shootings. And tactically, you know, tactically, this was a mess. And listen, thank God now we got AB 392. Maybe somebody better let LA County sheriffs know that AB 392 is a thing. And officers are going to be required, if given an opportunity to de-escalate, to do something else, you need to do something else before you use deadly force. Because once you pull the trigger 37 times, you don't get a do-over. And, you know, they tried to further explain, James, that, you know, they released these videos because they wanted to put to bed some of the information that was out there that wasn't true, such as that Ryan had been executed and shot in the head. Well, this video that I see doesn't show me that he wasn't shot in the head. It's positioned from some distance away. And the other thing we haven't heard, and listen, I know if they probably hit him once, they'd have been wanting to tell us, is how many of those 37 bullets actually connected?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. She said in the video, you know, they wanted to dispel some rumors. She didn't dispel one rumor other than the fact that, you know, the amount of shots fired, but we don't know where he struck at. We haven't seen an autopsy report. We don't know any of that information. I mean, to me, it's just tactically, maliciously, this looks to me like there was intent to execute this young brother. We see many times where if someone is wanted on weapons charges, that they're allowed to be taken to custody. Here in Pasadena, earlier this week, a lieutenant just surrendered to federal custody. He was indicted and convicted on weapons charges. When they went to arrest him, when the marshal went to arrest him, they didn't come in guns blazing first. They allowed him to properly be arrested, properly be adjudicated through the court of law, be sentenced, found guilty first, and then sentenced, and then go serve his time. Why is it that black and brown men are executed or shot? Why is violence, use of force the first result? I mean, I don't know. You've been the cop, not me.
Well, you know, one of the things that they're saying to justify this deadly use of force is because the sheriff's department has a policy with regards to shooting at vehicles. And what it says is that you can't shoot at a vehicle just because someone is fleeing unless there is a weapon involved. And so in this instance, we hear the deputy, and you guys will be able to watch and listen to her commentary, say that they are describing the weapon that Ryan used now as his vehicle. They're trying to assert that it was his intention when he backed up to possibly run over the officer in his attempt to get away. Well, we don't know that that was his intent, because again, he's not here. All we know is, all I think, I don't know, but I'm just thinking he wanted to get away. He'd been getting away successfully for 2 weeks. And it feels to me like now that they figured out where they were, because somebody said he's over here in this white car, let's go get him. And when they saw him, they were like, oh no, sir, you will not leave today. I promise you. And 37 rounds made sure he didn't leave, not the way he showed up, right?
Right. I mean, how do we know he wasn't startled? How do we know? There's far more questions for me than there are answers, other than the actual fact that his brother has been shot. We don't know how many times, and cannot tell his story. He cannot speak and tell what he was thinking. I don't know, at this point, Cheryl, if the warrant that they executed and the weapons that they found in the home that they allege that he lived in, do we even know if those are his weapons? Come on, Cheryl. I mean, he might have stand somewhere. He might have been in some other room. There are a lot of things that we just don't know, and they kind of just went with this narrative that he was wanted. Wanted and convicted are two different things. Right.
Well, I mean, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in that.
Right. Benefit ain't here.
I'm trying to be fair and unbiased. And so, but listen, let's just say that those were his weapons. Let's say that every weapon they took in that search warrant belonged to him illegally. Let's say that. Even if that were the case, you don't get to execute him. That's why we have courts. You take him to court and you have a jury of his peers find him guilty of whatever that thing is. But listen, a bad guy not wanting to go to jail, trying to get away, running. How many times have we seen people who try to evade arrest for a litany of things? Listen, Walter Scott, it was reported that he was behind on child support and may have thought he had a warrant. And when he jumped out of the car, he ran, and Michael Schlager pumped 8 rounds in his back. Sam DuBose was driving a car that didn't have a front plate, and who knows what else might have been going on. Did he have a license? I don't know. He was shot and killed. And so you don't get to execute people. You don't get to kill people because they won't come here or because they try to get away. Where is that allowed?
Obviously, it's allowed in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, because its policy suggests that you don't shoot into a vehicle, especially a moving vehicle, because of the potential for that vehicle to then kind of careen out of control and hit a pedestrian or someone else. Again, it goes back to the very beginning. Why did they approach the vehicle in that manner if it were a felony stop? Now, you've been on patrol. You did 20 years. You've been a supervisor. If you're going on a felony stop, Cheryl, and I'm asking you, I've never done it, I don't know, but if you're on a felony stop, do you approach a vehicle like that?
Listen, that was not a felony stop, and we know that, and so they're not going to be able to convince us of it. That's why they're going with the narrative of the vehicle was a weapon, because they're going to try to create that scenario to justify, the officer could have been struck. Well, he could not have been. The officer could have been.
You and I both know when this final incident has been reviewed, quote unquote, independently, and all the things are taken into account, that these officers are going to be cleared of the shooting and back on patrol as soon as they rubber stamp this situation. So, again, tactically, what could they have done differently? Why didn't they choose to do anything differently? And why is it that young black and brown men are the first result is to go use of deadly force? I mean, is that training in the academy and in different departments?
Well, we know that's not the training, because they've already admitted, Sheriff Villanueva has already said that that's not their policy, that, and certainly it's not LAPD policy to do that either. I mean, for years, the sheriff deputies over in LA County have always been able, in our mind, to, do stuff that, we just couldn't do. I mean, especially, back in the day, when I came on under Daryl Gates and they had Sheriff Sherman Block, LASO was bananas. I mean, it was like, you know, the Wild Wild West over there. They could shoot at cars, they could shoot at birds, they could do whatever they wanted to do, and it was all good. And so things are changed. But listen, so what's the consequence? What are the repercussions going to be? I say this changes nothing, because listen, when you got one of your commanders, when you got a commander going public and saying that, you know, the what she said, the officers were fearful because they could have been run over. The vehicle was used as a weapon by Ryan. We don't know he was intending to use his vehicle as a weapon. I say maybe he was just trying to get away. There was only one way for him to go, and that was to reverse out. But listen, tactically, you know, I'm told that that apartment complex is one way in and one way out, from someone who I know who lived very near that area. So, you know, the prudent thing in my mind as a supervisor, as a sergeant of police, would have been to get sufficient units. And just like we see that one unit that is parked slightly to the left of his vehicle, and you guys will know what I mean when you see it. I put the link up on this thread. But just like they had one vehicle positioned there, they could have had, you know, two more with them, and then they could have had 3 or 4 or 10 or 12 or however many others they wanted to have, preventing his escape on the other side of the vehicle, because backing up was all that he could do. And so listen, now that we know Ryan didn't have a weapon on him, because
Correct.
they haven't said anything to the contrary, they said they thought. And so here we go, what's in an officer's mind, right? But now that we know he didn't have a weapon, who's not to say that once he realized the gig was up, I can't get away because they got my cars blocked in, maybe he might have tried to run on foot, and then they could have got some exercise, or maybe he just would have given up. We don't know, because he's not here and we can't ask him. And so this is wrong. This is wrong. This is bothersome. And, you know, I don't see.
You know, it's going to be interesting, you know, as more comes out after this incident, you know, what SB 1421, you know, allows us, the public, to take a look into officers' use of force records. And so it's going to be interesting to see what's in their background, what skeletons, where have they used force, possibly even deadly force. Is this a propensity that these officers go to first? Is this an isolated incident? Is this just part of the culture within the sheriff's department? You shoot first, ask questions later. I don't know, but I can't wait until we have an opportunity to dig into the background and get a better understanding of, you know, what is these officers' pattern of behavior.
Well, you know, I mean, that's all, you know, great and good, and it would be nice to know, but then once we know it, then what? Because I think we already gonna know, you know, listen, folks don't start off just doing that kind of stuff. This wasn't their first rodeo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, people don't just start off shooting folks like that, in my opinion. And so if we find out that, you know, a couple of these, well, it's only 2 deputies involved, but if we find out that 2 of these deputies were actually involved in prior deadly shootings, now what? Okay, so now what? What do we do with that information?
Okay, so I have a question for you, Cheryl. If it's against policy to shoot into a vehicle, right? What is the concern for the passenger in the vehicle? Because right now he is probably the luckiest person alive. That many bullets came in that close proximity to him, and he was not hit not one time. Are officers supposed to take consideration to the passenger in the vehicle who's not in control of the vehicle?
Well, listen.
It can just be innocent bystander?
Well, listen, you know, I don't know exactly, you know, their policy over there, but I would imagine it's very similar to what ours is on the LAPD in background. In other words, you know, innocent victims, bystanders, background is something that you should be considerate of. And for them to fire that many rounds into that vehicle and not have the passenger get hit was really, you know, he need to be somewhere lighting a candle. Because, yeah.
And even the passenger deputy, you know, folks, if you haven't seen the video, Cheryl has it in her comments. Make sure you take a look at this video. It's about 9 minutes and 35 seconds long. It'll really give you understanding. Once you kind of fast forward through the narrative and the frame up that the commander does, you'll think the passenger officer, after he's somewhat bumped by the car, kind of moved to a position where it looks like the contact officer, he was in the crossfire. So you're talking about background. So it just, to me, it looks like a total disregard for everybody's safety. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at it, loaded up yet to see who fired first, but it just looks like there was a total disregard for the public safety and certainly that passenger safety, who, for all we know, is an innocent bystander who just happened to be talking with a friend in a car.
Yeah, well, that's something that will come out later. But again, once all of that is known, and once we hear from the passenger, and listen, he may not have any physical injuries, he may not have sustained a gunshot or bullet wound, right? He's got to have some. His head has got to be in a special place to have witnessed that, to have been there and seen your friend basically executed in front of you, and for however long he was able to, or he was required to sit there and not move, to see that, to know that, to hear whatever it sounded like as life left Ryan Twyman's body. That's got to have an effect on this person, whomever it is. And if it's family, then it's going to be, times whatever, because that's a loved one, right? So I just don't, I'm not encouraged by what I'm hearing from Sister Girl Commander April Tardy over there on the Sheriff's Department. I think they will justify, they will minimize and mitigate the behavior of those officers. And then it's going to be left up to a civil court where they'll, continue to do more battle. And then they will really dirty up Ryan and talk about all of the things involved in his past, which in my opinion has nothing to do with the reason why officers fired 37 rounds into a car that he was driving unarmed.
Yeah, it'll be real curious if, when we see the final medical examiner's report, autopsy, as to which round delivered the fatal, was the fatal shot. And did that come subsequently to was it the first round? Was it the 10th round? Was it the 12th round? Was it the 22nd round? Was it the 36th round? You know what I mean? It's like, at what point was enough? So much so that he ran back to the trunk of his car and pulled out an AR-15 and immediate. She talks about flashlight versus muzzle flash. I think people aren't stupid. You can see the difference. That gun was lighting up like the 4th of July. He was busting.
And, I'm sure that the sheriff's policy is not much different from ours in that, officers are required to reassess the threat. I don't know what the threat was. We know Ryan didn't have a gun. We know that he wasn't shooting at them. So what was the threat? In my mind, I believe this was punishment. Dude, you've evaded us for 2 weeks. We've been looking for you. We've been going to this house and that house. We can't find you. Aha, there you are. Tag, you're it. And so, no, sir, you're not going to get away today. You're not going to get away. And we're going to make sure. We're going to make sure, because we're going to give you 37 reasons that will keep you right here, right now.
Right. For sure. I appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate the honesty that you bring to the conversation, to the narrative. You're having some critical and uncomfortable conversations. And hey, we did the same when I had you on mine. I got to get ready to go get the shorty, my son. But I appreciate and I thank you so much for having me on, and we'll have to continue this conversation.
Absolutely, we'll get together again soon, and we'll do this often, and we'll work out those kinks. You'll bring me up to speed on what it is I need to do next time so we can see and hear you. But I appreciate you joining me, and we'll do this again. For those of you who don't know, this is James Farr from The Conversation Live, and he is also on Facebook. So check him out at theconversation.live on Facebook. Thanks, my brother. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon, Cheryl. Have a good day.
Okay. Okay, you guys. So I wanted to just bring in a different voice and have someone else just chime in with me on this. But, there's going to be a lot said about this particular shooting. Forgive the noise as I readjust my microphone. But, there's going to be much more said because, listen, This too is being tried in the court of public opinion. And the sheriff's department is trying to create a narrative that will calm you guys down. I don't know how successful they're going to be in creating that narrative, because, you know, here we see what we see, and they want to tell us that our lying eyes are not to be believed. And they want to further encourage us to buy into a narrative based on their own commentary, based on their own description of it. And listen, at the end of the day, this was an unarmed Black man who had been involved in some criminality. I give you that. We have courts to resolve those issues. This was an unarmed Black man shot 37 times. There was no threat at that moment. There was no reassessing whether or not a threat existed, continued to exist. You tell me, was it a justified shooting? Or was it, as the family says, an execution? I don't know. I know I don't like what I saw. I don't like what I saw as a mother. I don't like what I saw as a supervisor. And I'm just calling a spade a spade. Listen, if we don't admit that there's a problem, whether it's on the LAPD or LASO or you pick an agency, if we don't admit that there's a problem, then there's nothing to fix. There's nothing to fix. And listen, police departments are known for debriefing and discussing and trying to figure out what we can do better. And if they won't admit, if LASO won't admit that there's something that they could have done better or different in the case of Ryan Twyman, I promise you there'll be another Ryan Twyman. I promise you. And they'll throw buckets of money, maybe, maybe not, depending on how much they can dirty him up. They'll throw, you know, if not a bucket, maybe a couple of coins at the family. They'll change nothing. And, you know, we'll be outraged again in another 6, 8 months, 12 months, I don't know, 18 months, I don't know. So I just wanted to come on and just kind of vent. I only had about, 7 or 10 minutes this morning when I was on the radio show. And I had some more stuff I needed to get off my chest about this. So I wanted to come back and just share a little bit of what I think, what I continue to think about the fatal shooting by LA County Sheriff's deputies involving Ryan Twyman. And so you guys, we'll probably talk about this again next week on Thursday, because this is not going anywhere anytime soon. Signing out for now, you guys. Until next time, be good, be safe.